So the reason that I wanted to ask that question, probably one of the most divisive questions out of everything, a little more divisive than the whole Catholic thing, is this brings us into the most important thing, which is how we evangelize. You know, I believe that Arminians and Calvinists, the tools for evangelism are pretty much the same. Go out and preach the gospel. And so this is where it comes down to the title of this, the one true church. You know, the one true church, how are we out there evangelizing and getting people the gospel? And I believe that everybody has different strength areas, you know, in how they move the kingdom forward, in a sense, you know. Not that God's not moving it forward, but but you guys get what I'm saying. So you guys all have different ways of like helping people grow in their faith. People are Christians, giving people perspective on why it's a good idea to become a Christian. So with all of these differences that we have on certain topics, this is one thing that I believe we are all unified on, which is
I've seen a lot of Arminians mischaracterize Calvinists as not wanting to evangelize, and it doesn't really make sense with me because Calvinists may assume, okay, there's people that are predestined for hell or whatever the conversation is we just had, but we don't know who those people are. So we should be evangelizing to everybody. Right. And on the flip side of that, Arminians think that everybody can go to heaven, so we don't know who, so we should still evangelize to everybody. So I think at the end of the day, we should do our best to make those efforts something that we put a lot of time into. And I really think having a clear, concise version of the gospel that and you can repeat over is like a great first step to learning how to evangelize to others.
So I just have to say something because, here we are discussing some theological things about like double predestination. And when people hear, God predestines people to hell, it's like, why do I want to believe in that God? You know what I mean? This is what you guys got to understand. Hell, people have this idea of hell as if there's going to be people in there that are like, man, I was so wronged by God. I wish I could be in heaven right now, man. I wish I could be over there. Right. It looks like so much fun. They have this idea that the people in hell are somehow wronged by God. Like that they really want to be in heaven so bad. But I believe it's C.S. Lewis who says, the gates of hell are locked on the inside. Like even when you get to the other side, if Jesus came down, opened the door and was like, hey guys, if you want to put your faith in me right now and, come over to heaven, you could do it. They'd be like, leave me alone, Jesus, and shut the door.
That's the whole purpose of The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. He kind of illustrates that point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that in society, and we'll touch on some of the things that are going on in society. We'll touch on that after this discussion. You can see that 100%.
Yeah, heaven won't be fun for you if you don't love Jesus, right? Like, you're just not going to enjoy it there.
So I'm going to give the pastoral answer because I think this is important. But our entire church and our liturgy on Sunday morning completely changed because of the gospel. Everything we do on a Sunday morning, from the moment our worship begins to the closing benediction, we've reordered so that even someone who's in church on a Sunday who may or may not be saved is going to see the gospel just in our liturgy, in how we pray and how we confess sin and how we worship and how we hear the word of God preached. And so I think when we're talking about evangelism, first thing that comes to people's mind is going out into the street corner and telling someone the gospel. That's part of it. But also this preaching the gospel to yourself daily, so that when you gather as a corporate community to worship God together is the thing you're reminded of, the gospel. And that's what our church started to do, because we felt that it was so important in our culture today that the gospel be so explicit, not just in our preaching, but in our singing, in our praying, in our gathering, even in the bulletin that they take home from church. The gospel is presented there. And so I think as we start to think how we present the gospel, it starts to change how we do everything. It has for us as a church.
I think, I guess it depends on how we're, looking at this. Are we looking at it from, what is evangelism, or are we looking at, practicals of how to evangelize?
All of the above.
Okay, well, I want to speak into something. So, again, as I said, I grew up in the more Mennonite background. A lot of my extended family are very, very conservative, like Mennonite, Amish, Anabaptist, extremely conservative. there is a general repulsion, a general pushback against technology. Of course, if you look at Amish especially, anyway. So there's this general pushback in where I grew up against technology in general. But I've been realizing through content creation, I've been realizing through just other people I know who do ministry, the internet is a great place to start doing evangelism nowadays.
100%.
It's definitely still important for discipleship. For discipleship specifically, it's still important for people to have people in their lives who are Christian to walk them through things. But as far as sharing the gospel and as far as getting the message out there, the internet is a great place to do that, because there's been plenty of people who said, how I came to know about Christianity, or how I became curious about Christianity, or how I became actually learned about the gospel, or got saved and stuff, was through forums online, was through videos online, was through Xbox Live was another one I've heard of. There's this one guy I know of who does ministry on Xbox Live.
I rebuke you.
And so the internet's a great place to introduce people to the gospel, to teach the gospel, and people actually do legitimately have the Holy Spirit work in their lives through using the internet and people on the internet to get people to salvation. Now, I still think, again, for discipleship purposes, from that point onward, it's very important for have someone in their life who's actually walking with them. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it spikes curiosity just by creating content and pushing things out on the internet. I mean, that's where half the new generation is on, right? If anything, and all of our past generations, whoever's still alive, they're still using the internet, whether it's Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever it is. They're using some sort of technology, and being able to use the internet as a tool or as a way of pushing the gospel, it's essential, especially today in this age.
4.7 billion people are on social media.
Yeah.
4.7 billion.
I've seen it through my page. I feel like my page was created more for those church hurt people, because that's really how I felt. I felt church hurt, but I'm seeing the shift too, because people are like, okay, but what about this? And why is your God better than my God, or whatever the case may be? It's spiking the curiosity because they're seeing the love of God through the internet, through my YouTube channel. And if everyone else can push that and with good theology, but expressing the love of God but also with that firm hand, right? Because it's not all about, just, God is love and God is grace and God is this and God. You have to also create that discipleship and teach people how to stay firm, how to actually, I'm sorry, I'm losing my words here, but it's how to do exactly what it is that we're trying to do. Get them to do the same thing. Get them to push the message as well, but live that faith in that life in faith.
Yeah, bro. The internet is like a total cesspool of just horrific nonsense, and really, that's where, to quote Elon Musk, that is the public square now. That is where life is happening, is on the internet. But since it's so horrific, I think it's easy for a Christian to check out and be like, I want no part of that. And that was myself. I have zero personal social media because I just don't even want to look at it, because it's crazy, everything that you can see on the internet. But I was convicted of that, and by reading a book called Digital Dominion by a fella named Jeff Mingy. And he's basically talking about how if you're not preaching the gospel on the internet, why?
So,
what are you doing?
I mean, I can actually give a response from someone who comes from a background where people give responses to that question. The big one is the one I hear the most frequently from people within the more conservative circles would say that the temptation and the debt withdrawals are actually greater than the opportunity. So the temptation, let's just take a big one, all guys here, pornography. Yeah. I mean, I know for some people, actually, I would tell them you should get away from your cell phone and actually not be on the internet for the next month, because they're so addicted to pornography that if they go on their phone, they're just going to end up going to places.
Don't you have a great video on your channel talking about how you put down your phone for 24 hours?
Yes. I
think
do
you do.
Video about 24-hour video. Yeah, yes. I thought you were going to talk about my pornography video.
No.
But no, so...
Wait. There's a pornography video.
How to escape?
Yeah.
I have a video about the terribleness of pornography.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Words matter.
Words matter. Yeah.
Define your terms.
Definitions matter. But all that to say, yeah, that would be the response: is that the temptations or the inability outweigh the actual benefits of the internet. So
I can see that for sure. And I think if you're a new Christian or if you have struggles to do that, then sure, stay away for your own spiritual maturity and growth. But I think that if you want to evangelize this generation, you have to be evangelizing on the internet. And I think that's why what we do is so important, because we are that voice in the world. And I think that if anybody's watching our panel and they feel like they want to make a difference too, I think they should start a YouTube channel too and preach the gospel and tell people about Jesus.
It's the fastest way to reach a ton of people.
I totally agree. But just like I don't think virtual church should replace your local church, I don't think that evangelism on technology should replace missions.
Right, but that's where that part comes in, where you actually teach these people as well. Because one thing I mention all the time, although you're seeing these videos, that doesn't mean you can't go to church. That doesn't mean you can't congregate. Being with like-minded people is important. It keeps you in the faith. It keeps you, accountable. How many people do... I used to be addicted to pornography. Now that we're speaking about it, I used to be addicted to pornography. What helped me? Accountability. Yep. But I couldn't do that just by looking at other YouTube videos. I needed somebody physically, hey, how are you? I needed that person.
Yeah. But that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
All the stuff we're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
Keep pushing. Keep going. Make as many videos as you can if God is calling you to do that. But I also want to encourage anyone watching, or you guys, go on mission trips too. Because when I got trained in my church to go to South Dakota, and I know it's a part of America, but we're very Americanized in the way we think of evangelism and missions. But when you go to South Dakota, especially on, where it's like dinosaurs still live, that's how it looks, even though it's a part of America.
If you're watching from South Dakota, we love you.
Yeah, we love you,
They
South
don't
Dakota.
have They
Bunch
don't
of
have an
coastal
Americanized
elites on
way
the stage.
of looking at things.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people don't look at the internet. You might think, oh, they're a part of America. No. So we had to sit through a class to learn all about their culture, learn about the language they speak, learn about how they view Christianity. They view Christianity as the white man took their land.
Yeah.
And the white man took their land, and the white men were Christians. So
These are natives
you think
you're
they're
talking
going to
about?
care? Yeah, the natives.
Yeah, you should qualify that you went to a
Yeah,
reservation.
find your terms, man.
I went on a res.
That was not the
I went on a
Dakota I was
reservation.
thinking about.
I went on a reservation where essentially these people were casted there, and they don't want to give up their land because that's where their families were, and that's what they have. They're not looking at, I'm not getting into CRT here or racism or anything like that. This is completely different. They're not looking at a white man on YouTube and saying, oh, I want to hear what those Christians have to say.
That's true. Yeah.
They're caring about how you impact their life.
I mean, that goes back to the whole thing that everyone plays a different role within the church. I mean, the hand, feet, eyes, all that stuff. I mean, it goes back to even like if you look at the apostles, you see this where Paul was primarily focused on reaching the Gentiles, while Peter and stuff was primarily focusing on Jewish communities and stuff. Like each person has their own role to play within the church. Each person has their own calling to a certain extent. Each person reaches different people groups. And because as one person, you can't do everything, but
I do
as a
agree.
group.
But I think, me personally, I feel that all Christians should be called to do missions up to some point. Go on a mission trip, even if it's once every couple of years, because there's things that you can encounter there that you can't encounter anywhere else in your life that will help you grow spiritually, and you will impact other people's lives that you cannot impact here.
So the verse I keep coming back to about this, and I'll take it bigger than mission trips. Ephesians 4:12 is it's the job and the role of the church to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. And what is the work of the ministry? To proclaim the gospel, because Romans 1, we believe the gospel is the power of God unto salvation, and we're not ashamed of it. So this idea of what is the role of the church? The role of the church is to be sending out daily missionaries, equipping them to go do that. What has church become? Come and consume. Come and get something you want and then go home. And so I think what we're seeing is a push and a change in content as well. But if it doesn't change from the pulpit and it doesn't change from churches to equip people to go do gospel ministry, and gospel ministry might look like, hey, I work in an office building and I'm going to get to know every single person in this office building. That might be your gospel ministry, right? So I think giving vocational ministry and understanding to this next generation, the people here, is really huge.
I think in the way that the church has become a building, we can't allow the church to become the internet. You know, it's got to be the way that it was intended. We gather as a church, not as we're not in the church. Yeah, we gather as a church, not in the church. So I think you guys covered it well. You know, we may disagree. Like if you listen to what we were just talking about and how the conversation was going, and then we talked about how to evangelize, right? The excitement is on a whole other level. And that's how it should be. Yes, we should be excited to talk about our differences and figure them out. But the most excited that we are is when we're talking about how is it that we are trying to impact the world and bring people to Christ. And I think that that's a clear sign of where our focus should be as a church, as the one true church, you know, on the Why Jesus Network. Make sure that you share, like, subscribe, all that stuff.